stop everything for 30 seconds because if you're real Dub Nation, you're going to want to hear this now. The Warriors' next big move has just leaked, and it's not just a rumor thrown into the air. It's the kind of thing that changes the rotation, changes the climate in the locker room, and changes hope for this season. I know how it hurts to watch games where there seems to be a missing piece, to see the fans divided, and to feel that time is passing while the rivals are moving. But breathe, because this time there is a clear path. What was leaked points out exactly where the management wants to adjust the cast and how this can unlock the team for good. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to show you what's behind this leak and why, if it's confirmed, everything changes from now on. Before I tell you the detail that makes this leak different from all the others, do the following quickly. Subscribe to the channel now, because here we update you the moment things break and you don't find out too late. Leave a like too, because this shows me that you want the board to move and make this video reach more people in Dub Nation. And activate the bell seriously, because if this movement progresses today, the update could drop at any moment and I will post it without warning. Combined? Now comment below, Dub Nation, so I know you're with me, and stay until the end, because the last piece of information is the one that explains why this movement could change everything. When you really follow the Warriors, you feel firsthand when a team is close to turning the key, and at the same time, when something is missing for that turn to happen. It's exactly this feeling that I want to talk to you about today, looking calmly at the moment in the Golden State and at a movement that began to gain strength behind the scenes. It's not that kind of noise made just to attract attention. It's a possibility that speaks directly to a problem that we've been seeing for weeks. Before getting into the name and the scenario, let me get you on the same page. The team has 12 wins and 12 losses. It's a strange portrait because it's not a disastrous campaign, but it also doesn't look like the campaign of a squad that enters the court thinking about the title. It's as if we are stuck in an intermediate zone where everything can improve quickly or get complicated if the answers take time. And what bothers most is that these 12-12 do not reflect what the squad is capable of doing when it fits. Because you've seen it, I've seen it, everyone has seen it. There are nights when the ball turns in the right way, the cuts appear, the shots come at the pace, the defense talks, the exchanges work. And for a few minutes it seems that the Golden State is once again that team that suffocates the opponent with intelligence and repetition of good decisions. But the season also showed the other side, and that side hurts more because it repeats itself. Games in which the attack loses fluidity, in which possessions turn into individual effort, in which the team is slow to react, in which the rotation seems disconnected. And when that happens, the difference between a good team and a team with real ambition becomes clear. It's not a lack of talent, it's fit, balance, and consistency, because there is honestly no shortage of talent. Steph Curry continues to play as if he were in a war against time, and it's impossible not to respect the way he creates advantages where none seem to exist. Draymond Green continues to be that player who gives identity, who organizes the defense, who points out what each person needs to do, who improves the team with reading and presence. And Jonathan Kuminga, little by little, shows that he can be more than a flash. When he understands the rhythm of the game and attacks the right spaces, he changes the dynamics of the court. Even so, there is one point that insists on not closing. And this is where Steve Kerr's work comes in. Because when a technician like him starts tinkering and tinkering with the rotations, it's not on a whim. It's because he's looking for a combination that delivers the basics every night. Spacing, execution, defensive solidity, and, above all, a repeatable pattern. And a very clear sign of this search appeared in the way a specific player was losing space. A player who arrived expecting to be an important player precisely for one simple reason: shooting. The idea was to have another reliable three-point threat to relieve pressure on Curry, open the court, punish aggressive markings, and force the opponent to respect each extra pass. But practice showed something else. The minutes began to dwindle. There were long stretches on the bench, and the impact, as a whole, was lower than what was imagined when this fitting was designed. And when you see a coach who values shooting so much reducing a specialist's time on the court, it's because the complete package isn't working. Today, this player is averaging 8 points per game. The use of 40.4%, is good when viewed in isolation. But basketball is not just a percentage. It's volume, it's constancy, it's the ability to stay on the court without becoming the opponent's target. And that's where the problem lies. The coaching staff is telling you, with decisions, that as it is, you can't trust enough to keep this player in decisive situations. And it could be for several reasons, without us needing to invent a single theory. It could be that defensive limitations are being exploited, forcing the team to cover too much and breaking the scheme. It could be that the player hasn't been able to adapt to the movement attack, where you need to read quickly, pass quickly, cut at the right time, be ready without needing a play designed for you. It could be chemistry, it could be timing, it could be a sum of all of this. But whatever the diagnosis, the consequence is direct. The Golden State has a contract worth $9.2 million this season that, today, is not delivering the return that the team needs to take the next step. And that's where the conversation moves away from frustration and into the realm of solutions. Because when a team is at this point, there are two possible attitudes. The first is to pretend that everything is fine and wait for the fit to fall from the sky. The second is to look for an intelligent adjustment without despair that attacks the right problem and preserves the future. And what is circulating is that the front office is not standing still. There is movement, there is analysis, there is a search for alternatives that improve rotation without compromising flexibility and without falling into that trap of changing for the sake of changing. What they would be looking for is very clear. A player who fits better into the system, delivers reliable production, has fewer defensive weaknesses, and brings positional versatility, someone that Kerr can put on the court and know exactly what he's going to get. And, according to reports that have recently gained strength, there is a target that makes a lot of sense within this design. We are talking about a 2.001 wing, rotation profile, and with one of the most consistent shooting records in the league in recent years. It's not a name that dominates headlines, and perhaps that is precisely why it is interesting, because the Golden State often wins by the margin. You win when you find the right piece, not necessarily the loudest one. The point that draws attention is the consistency. More than 40% from the perimeter for 7 consecutive seasons. That, in today's NBA, is gold, because there are many pitchers who repeat efficiency for years, understand the role and don't need to monopolize the ball, are rarer. And here is another detail that weighs heavily. He is not a high-usage player who needs designed plays, who requires the ball in his hands to produce. It is a complementary piece. Someone who understands what it's like to be alongside stars, who plays with discipline, who executes within the system, and who, when the ball arrives, solves it. The advanced metrics mentioned in this type of conversation also reinforce this reading. The so-called offensive portability in the 92nd percentile means something very simple. It can work in almost any attack because it does not depend on specific conditions to be useful. True shooting of around 60.3% indicates real efficiency. And when profile comparisons appear with players like Klay Thompson, it is not to say that he is the same player, but to say the type of shot, the type of function, the type of possible impact within a well-organized system resembles this mold. Now think with me about what this represents for Warriors today. One of the most constant requests this season was more size on the wings, more people capable of physically holding some formations, more players who are not an automatic defensive problem and who still keep the court open. The team needs people who can defend multiple positions with awareness, who understand switching, coverage, and rotation. And it needs this without losing the spacing that supports the Curry's attack. It also needs, and this is important, players who know how to live within the movement attack. It's not enough to be good at one-on-one. In the Golden State, the value is often in reading the advantage, making the right pass, making the right block, cutting at the right time, being ready in the corner without asking for the ball. And this target, based on history, is someone who fits this. And then the conversation becomes even more interesting when we look at the financial side, because not every exchange rumor survives the reality of the ceiling. Here, the numbers almost fit together as if they were made for this. On the one hand, a salary of $9.2 million. On the other, $8.5 million. a small difference which avoids juggling multiple teams and reduces the risk of an operation becoming an impossible puzzle. What is being said is that the Golden State may need to include a future second-round pick to make the offer more attractive, something from 2027 onwards. And within the real world of the NBA, this is a relatively low cost when OU are exchanging a fitting that didn't work for one that can stabilize the rotation. On the other side would be the Utah Jazz, a team in reconstruction, with an eye on assets, choices, and flexibility. When a team is at this stage, exchanging a veteran in the last year of his contract usually makes perfect sense, especially if the exchange brings some draft return and a player who can become an asset on the market later. There are very low campaign projections for Utah, which reinforces this logic. They are not thinking about now as a top priority. They are thinking about tomorrow. And a veteran pitcher, no matter how good he is, may not be aligned with the timeline of a project that wants to accumulate value. And then we come to the name Georges Niang, a player who, in the eyes of many people, goes unnoticed precisely because he does his job without a spectacle. But high-level basketball is full of these names that, when they enter the right context, become key players. Niang has built a reputation as one of the league's most reliable pitchers, especially as a rotation player who doesn't need crazy volume to make a difference. There is one caveat that needs to be treated seriously. He is out due to a stress reaction in the foot, and this, of course, raises an alert. No one trades for an injured player without a strong medical evaluation, without certainty of recovery, and without a return plan. The positive part, based on what has been reported, is that he would be approaching protocols for returning to the courts. And a stress reaction, while requiring care, is typically more a matter of time and management than a long-term sentence. Still, it's the kind of detail that decides whether a movement gets off the ground or not. If he is okay, what Niang delivers is very clear. Last full season, he played 79 games and averaged 9.9 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 1.4 assists in 21.5 minutes. Shot 40.6% from three and 46.1% from the field. This is stable production. It's not a star explosion, and it doesn't need to be. It's consistency within a role. And here is a point that I consider decisive when you think about Steve Kerr. Niang, based on his profile, is the type of player who doesn't give you a headache for his role. It will not require to be a priority, will not stop the attack waiting for touch. He enters, blocks, positions himself in the right space, makes an extra pass when needed, and punishes when the opponent chooses to help too much in the curry. And that, for a team that lives off gravity, is huge, because the gravity of the curry creates difficult decisions for any defense. The question is, who is ready to take advantage of these decisions in the right way, at the right pace, without hesitation? When you put someone on the court who knows what to do with a second advantage, the attack changes levels. Defensively, no one is selling Niang as a specialist who will stop the opposing top scorer single-handedly. That's not the game. But he is also not that player who becomes an automatic target in every possession without an answer. He understands positioning, competes, and his size helps him not to be pushed around easily. In a defensive system that requires communication and help all the time, what you need is someone who does the basics well and doesn't break the plan. The structure that has been designed as clean is simple. Golden State would send Buddy Hield plus a future second-round pick and would receive Georges Niang. Buddy is in the second year of a contract with a player option going forward, while Niang is in the final year. This difference in contractual nature also matters because it affects off-season flexibility. The team would exchange a potentially longer commitment for an expiring one, gaining room to decide later. Of course, there is always talk of the second apron and details of casting maneuvers that may come into play depending on other decisions. But at the core, it is a straightforward operation, snap change and profile adjustment, with a relatively controlled draft cost. Now, the question I know you're asking yourself is, does this really change everything? Alone, probably not. And it's important to say this honestly. It's not a blockbuster exchange. It's not the kind of movement that dominates the news across the country. It's not a change that, in itself, automatically turns the Golden State into the West's absolute favorite. But real basketball is often decided by these corrections. For these adjustments that seem small on paper and turn into big ones on the court, Because what's holding the team back today isn't a lack of a superstar. The team has the Curry. The team has leaders. The team has young people with potential. What is missing is a sustainable fit, balanced rotation, and players who deliver night after night what the system asks for. If Niang enters and becomes that piece that maintains the spacing without sinking the defense, that gives Kerr more security in the rotation, that allows him to line up higher formations, that punishes of the perimeter with consistency, you don't need a revolution to feel the difference. You feel it in the pace of the game, in the number of good possessions per game, in the way the opponent hesitates to help, in the way Curry finds an extra second to breathe. And there is a detail that makes everything even more interesting: the story. Niang signed with the Warriors back in 2017 as an undrafted free agent, went through training camp, and ended up released before the season. He never got to wear the Golden State shirt in an official game. After that, he built his career, gained space, became a respected name as a rotation pitcher. And now, there is the possibility of a return, many years later, to finally play for the franchise that, way back when, saw something in him. These full-circle stories don't win games on their own, but they do say something about motivation and context. A player who returns to where he had a chance, now with a career ready, tends to value the opportunity. And for a squad that needs the right energy, people who come in to add something and not complicate things, that also counts. Coldly comparing the recent production that was mentioned. The buddy with an average of 8 points and 40.4% from three, but with minutes dropping and fit questioned. Niang in the last full season, with 9.9 points, 40.6% from three, and a wing profile that matches more with what the Golden State asks for. In efficiency, both offer pitch. The difference is in the package and the paper. One is more positionally limited and has been exposed. The other tends to fit better as a complementary piece in an organized attack. And when you combine this with financial flexibility, taking a contract with potential continuity and bringing in an expiring one, the risk is also more controlled. If it works out, you can calmly talk about renewal at an amount that makes sense. If it doesn't, you have the freedom to follow another path. The team is not trapped. So, what I want you to take away from here is simple. When you see the Golden State at 12-12, don't just look at it as middle of the table. Look at it as a team trying to figure out which version of it is going to show up most often. Because the good version exists. The Curry is delivering. Draymond gives identity. The Kuminga has energy and evolution. Kerr is looking for rotations that work. The challenge is to transform this into consistency. And consistency often comes from having the right piece in the right place. Not the most famous, but the most appropriate. If the front office is really exploring a move like this, it's a sign that they understand where it hurts and that they're trying to resolve it head-on, not with desperation. Now, I want to hear from you. If this trade happens and Niang arrives healthy, do you think it becomes a small adjustment that improves the team? Or do you see it as a change that truly alters the Golden State's ceiling this season? Leave your opinion, because I read and use a lot of what you bring to direct the next analyses. And if you want to follow every update, every rumor that gains strength, every rotation detail, and every sign of what the Golden State can do before the trade deadline, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications. When a story like this accelerates, it changes everything very quickly, and I want you to be here with me when the next piece of this puzzle appears. And now I want you to remember one thing. The season is not defined just by the big games. It is defined by the movements that correct what is holding the team back. When the Golden State makes an adjustment, the effect doesn't just appear in a quarter. It appears in weeks, appears in the rotation becoming more reliable, in the attack starting to breathe again, in the defense stopping to give up easy points, and especially in Steph Curry finally having the right support for the team to play at the level that everyone knows they can play. Because what is at stake here is not just any rumor. It's a portrait of a franchise that needs to decide whether it's going to accept the mediocrity of 12-12 as normal or whether it's going to treat it as a warning sign and act intelligently. And if this movement really is confirmed, you can be sure It's not just an exchange, it's a message. It's the Golden State saying that there is still hunger, there is still ambition, there is still an open window, and that no one will waste it in silence. So do the following now before leaving. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the bell, because if this story advances, I will bring the update the minute it goes live. And I want you here, before anyone else, understanding what changes, who gains space, who loses minutes, and how this directly affects the team's path in the season. And pay attention. If you want to binge the hottest news, behind-the-scenes, analysis, and all the updates in sequence, the Golden State Warriors News Today playlist will be in the pinned comment. Click there now, because this video could be exactly the piece that completes this puzzle and makes you understand why. From here, everything can turn around.